In 1775, the hopes of the American Revolution only existed upon a rebellion that relied on a bunch of ragtag Minutemen in local American towns. These militiamen would be ready in minutes' notice in order to fend off the British in their towns. However, these militias were poor and soldiers relied on personal possessions to function as a threat. They used basic muskets, pistols, cannons, and horses. 1776 would prove to be tough for the Minutemen and their generals. This resulted in changes towards tactics. For example, generals adopted the Fabian strategy and guerrilla warfare used by Native Americans. Tides would start to change in 1778 when America pulled an upset on the British armies at the Battle of Saratoga. This caused France to join the war in 1779. Once the French joined the war, the Americans had better access to supplies such as food, money, and weaponry. They were able to refuel their momentum and start training militia into effective American soldiers with the help of Marquis de Lafayette. In the final years of the war, in 1781, the new resources provided by the French, American generals were finally able to reliably outmaneuver and outperform British forces, sending British generals into the perpetual state of fleeing. Additionally, America used the French Navy to blockade British support from fleeing generals, which inevitably led to British surrender in Yorktown, Virginia. The American Civil War is a great conflict between the North and the South over the issue of slavery. The Civil War was the first war America participated in after the technological advancements of the Industrial Revolution. This war saw the utilization of various ammo types, ironclad ships, trains, and telegraphs. Because of the superior industrial power in the North, they had easy access to those innovations of technology, giving them a major advantage over the South, who were still mostly living an agrarian lifestyle at the time. Despite this industrial advantage, the Union generals were incompetent and inefficient at exploiting this advantage, where the Confederate generals were experienced experts at combat who managed to use their resources to the fullest of their ability. This skill gap in generals allowed for the Confederacy to outmaneuver the Union armies, forcing them to make blunders that cost them battles where they outnumbered the South 5-1. It was only until a Union general in the West, Ulysses S. Grant, used his superior resources to outflank and outmaneuver Confederate forces along the Mississippi River. This display of success promoted Grant to face off against the Confederates' main general, Robert E. Lee, in the East. With the war winding down, the South resources were depleted. Grant took advantages of these weaknesses by exploiting the North's manpower. Reckless blitz charges would prove very effective since many Confederate victories involved dealing a huge blow and having the Northern forces retreat. However, Grant was more adamant on his position and continued his momentum despite the losses. This led to the capture of Richmond and the fall of Confederate States of America.
Following the invasion of Poland in 1939, the European powers engaged in brutal conflict to halt fascist expansion. America would remain neutral at this time, and would only aid its allies by vending supplies by the cash and carry and the later Lend-Lease program. This would all change following the surprise bombing of Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. America had no intentions to enter the European conflict until Germany declared war on them shortly after America's declaration of war on Japan. This war brought various new methods of engaging in combat, the use of camo, tanks, ships, planes, guns, bombs. The use of camos and uniforms made it a lot harder to spot the infantry and their tanks. This allowed for more soldiers to delay being spotted and engage their objective without facing the enemy. These camos were also painted onto tanks. These paint jobs paired with poor quality tank sets made it nearly impossible to spot enemy vehicles when they're matching the color of their background. This paired with the tank's development in armor, gun, and drivetrain made them a lot more versatile for this great conflict. The improved armor allowed them to absorb various caliber rounds for their infantry units, forcing the enemy to target their large caliber weapons to take out the tanks first. Another method of taking out these mobile shields was through the use of planes. These planes were a lot faster, bigger, and maneuverable. The right plane and ammunition can counter most military operations. This included most naval operations in the Pacific Theater, like the Battle of Midway on June 4, 1942. These innovations in war would lead to the closure of the European front on May 8, 1945. The Pacific Front would end a few months later on September 2, 1945. They only surrendered once a second atomic bomb was dropped on Nagasaki on August 9, 1945.
Oh, my leg!
Through the exercise of adapting to a continental threat, America was able to take developments from the conflict and translate it into domestic purposes. For example, in the American Revolution, America had to disconnect from its mother country and learn to be self-sufficient. The Civil War had a similar impact, where after the war, industrial power was proven to be very effective against a lesser developed nation. Therefore, after the war, America continued to expand their industrial power to the west and south. With this industrial might, America was able to dominate This war influenced domestic technologies that we still use to this day. For example, the highway systems found in Germany were brought to America. Radio operations inspired handheld communication devices such as phones. World War II taught America to build fast, maneuverable, and big aircraft for transportation. Finally, it also created many jobs for the public. Ultimately, America's engagement in war and the innovations founded along the way have greatly influenced domestic quality of life in America.
Save me!